Thank you very much for joining us on the Photo Flunky Show, episode 86. Today, we're going to be telling you why you really don't need a photography degree. Hi, my name is William Beem.
Hi, my name is Lee Beem.
And I don't want to be down on education. Matter of fact, I've worked in the education field for quite a number of years, but we really kind of wanted to go over reasons why you may or may not want a photography degree, but you definitely don't need one. And before we get started with that, I just want to let you know that show notes are going to be available at williambeem.com/episode 86. And you can find a transcript of the show there for free. Also, you can find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. I keep calling it iTunes, but now they want us to call it Apple Podcasts.
I'll call it what I want because everybody knows iTunes.
And Google Play Music and other sources. And of course, you can find links also to subscribe at photoflunky.com. We've got a player there. You can listen to this and other shows. Hope you enjoy it. All right, so let's get into why we think that you don't need a photography degree.
Well, I can give you a very practical, real-life example.
Please do. Give me one.
Okay. Who do you impress with a photography degree?
There are some people that think that degrees and certifications are good tools for marketing.
Yeah, but if you go and flash your certificate with your degree, you're trying to impress another photographer.
Either that or you're trying to get hired as a staff photographer someplace and they're requiring certain certifications or a degree as a way of weeding out people who don't have them so they don't have as many resumes to look at.
Right. Now, here's where real life comes in. People who need or want to hire someone to take photos are not looking for credentials. When I want to book a doctor's or dentist appointment or a physical therapist, I do scroll down to see what their certification is. I want to make sure that they're registered and somebody qualified, which is, I've never found a problem where they're not. When I am looking for a photographer, and I have done so for baby photos, for portraits, we've done it for
we
wedding
did it for wedding photography. You did it with Tove as, family photography.
It never crossed my mind to look for any certification. I went straight into the portfolio and everything I needed to know was there.
And quite simple, success doesn't care if you have a degree or not. You're either a good photographer or you're not, and the results will show up in examples of your work.
That's fine. And also what might be a good photographer to you for your needs or, whatever you're wanting to get from them today might not be the same as what you're looking for tomorrow. I might be wanting something different. So good is a very broad term. You need to appeal to your own markets.
And like I said, I'm not putting down the notion of getting a photography degree. There are a lot of people that I know and respect that have degrees. They learn quite a bit from them. But I also know quite a number of people who are very successful that maybe have a degree in a different field or don't have formal photography training that are excellent.
I'll tell you who might benefit from a photography degree, not necessarily the degree, but some kind of formal teaching, is somebody who's wanting to get technical, who is naturally primarily creative. Now, to me, I don't see that as a need, but I can understand that there might be situations or there might be certain genres you would want to go into where you need to I would probably benefit from that if I wanted to start paying attention to the technical aspects. Now, I just learned from William. Everybody who's been listening to us for a while very quickly realizes that I have very little regard for the technical side of things.
But you have a natural creative instinct that came from other aspects of your art background.
Yes, but no, I've been having some fun with very casual, informal, I call it product photography because it is specific brands and products. There are certain things that I need to achieve. I do have to call on some kind of technical knowledge for that because if you're taking a photo of Coca-Cola, that red needs to be Coca-Cola red. And, that's just a silly example. There is a place for the technical side. You cannot completely disregard it. I wouldn't say necessarily a degree for me, but there have been times where I've had to go and educate myself on the technical aspects.
Well, let's talk about some of the things what do you get with a photography degree or at least formal training that way. So a couple of things that you're going to expect from coming out of the school is you're going to learn how to build a portfolio, which is no small thing.
No.
If you want to go off and be a commercial photographer, you want to be a fashion photographer, you want to get work, you need to be able to demonstrate your capabilities, and you need to have a portfolio that isn't going to tick off the person who has very little time to review your work.
Exactly.
And they're kind of picky about how they want to see it. So you want to know how to put together a really good book.
And I think that's a good thing to get.
It is a really good thing to get. And it's the kind of thing that you probably want to be able to work on and practice and then maybe redo it a few times before you do it for real. Photography school will help you with that. It'll also help you get professional level feedback. In other words, you're going to have assignments that you have to go do. They may or may not relate to what you really want to do, But that kind of rounds you out, supposedly. And then your instructor is someone that hopefully has experience and they're sharing their knowledge with them. And they're going to tell you, like, okay, here's what you did here. It's not all going to be about technical stuff. It's not all going to be about creative. It's going to be a mix of both. And you're going to get that kind of feedback.
Yes.
Now, sometimes feedback is opinion, and you've still got the right. You can decide, this is my style. This is what I want to do. It may or may not get you any work, or it may make you the next big thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least you get the feedback. You've got something to bounce it off of rather than thinking in a vacuum and not knowing what anybody else believes. This is something that would be a trade school almost. So you're going to get job placement assistance. That really depends, again, on what you want to do. It's like, what kind of job placement assistance do you want to get? I mean, do you want to be a photographer at Walt Disney World, dressing up in a costume, taking pictures of people on the street? You're going to be working for a newspaper. I don't know what job placement you're going to get. Being a photographer means that you can work almost anywhere that you want to. People need photos all over the place.
Yeah.
But job placement assistance, I don't put as much weight on that these days as I probably would have when I wanted to do this when I was coming out of high school.
Yeah, I think the world has changed. The world of photos has changed. Everybody has a camera. Your 5-year-old has access to a camera at any given time of the day.
Yes. And another aspect you get is you get to work with gear that you probably wouldn't be able to afford on your own if you're just beginning, particularly like if you're school age, maybe just coming out of high school. You're going to go to a photography school that's going to have access to different cameras, different lenses, different systems, and different lighting. And you're going to get a chance to work with all of that as part of your degree program.
Yeah.
Doing portraits with lighting is a big deal. Doing product photography or doing sports photography, you're going to work with different systems and different gear for all of that. And if they're going to take you through that within the degree, that gives you, again, more experience with different stuff. And finally, you're going to meet people. You're going to be able to network with folks. And I think that's generally a very good thing as well.
I think that is an advantage. To me, that is probably the biggest advantage of all, alongside maybe building a portfolio, which I think that can be quite a stressful and intimidating job, because when somebody says put together a portfolio, I think, where do I start? What do you need? And learning how to assess what you need and how to, work it for that specific purpose is something that most of us would benefit from some guidance. I know that I'd want input for anything if I were asked to build a portfolio right now.
This can work out to your advantage. I mean, it depends upon the person that you are and how you learn. Mm-hmm. Now, when I was coming out of high school, my senior year, I was really into photography. I wanted to be a photographer. I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but I was already looking at schools. I was looking at the two of the best schools in the nation at the time. One was Brooks College out in California, and the other one was here just an hour drive away was then Daytona Beach Community College and now Daytona Beach State College. They had an outstanding program. Something happened. Personal computers came around, and I took a completely different tack going off into IT. Someone that I really admired for actually coming out of photography school and built a career out of it is Brad Moore. Brad went to photography school, and through some circumstances that I don't totally understand, I believe Joe McNally knew his instructor, and I may be getting this story wrong, but Brad ended up working as an assistant for Joe McNally, and then later on working as assistant for Scott Kelby. And working with Scott, he got to meet a ton of other photographers. Brad is probably one of the most well-networked photographers, and he's an outstanding photographer too.
He's really good.
And photography school...
And he's a nice guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. And I think photography school served him very well. He learned his craft, hoped that he learned business out of it as well. And he worked, for some of the top names in the photography industry within the United States. And he's got connections everywhere. And now he's in around Nashville, Tennessee, working with someone doing music photography. I mean, he's done concert photography for a few years. I think they're also doing music videos now. He's got his own business. He's doing what he wants. I think that is an outstanding story. So that's why I'm saying I'm not trying to put down a photography degree. It can work for you. But for every Brad Moore that I know, I probably know 100 other guys that are working as a cashier in a photography store or a camera store.
Okay, here's the thing though. I was just listening to you talk about Brad, and as we've spoken about the benefits, I think that the biggest benefit of doing a photography degree has nothing to do with the degree. Sadly, you have to pay for it, or I would say just don't bother about the piece of paper. It doesn't matter if you fail or not. But I think the biggest benefits you get is just actually going through the course with other people and being exposed to different ideas. Mm-hmm. It's really the experience that makes the photographer. That piece of paper and passing the theoretical tests and exams and things, I think that is completely irrelevant. You don't need to prove anything on paper. Obviously, to get the experience, you're going to have to pay the bucks and go through the whole thing.
And it's a lot of bucks. I mean, trade school, diplomas, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars for these degrees. The reason I bring this up, and I'm not trying to be mean, but locally in the Orlando area, we have a school called Full Sail, and they do a lot of creative stuff. And I meet a lot of their graduates who are cashiers at some at camera stores, some at music stores. I'm thinking, man, you got all this training. You're supposed to know all these things. You need to take advantage of it and push it and make it work for you. I'm not saying that the problem is with the school. I'm saying that have the motivation to take what you've learned and apply it someplace.
I'm just trying to think. I've read a lot about Full Sail, and everyone seems to really enjoy their courses. But I have yet to hear of anybody mention that they, somebody working as a photographer and earning, saying that anything about the fact that they had a history with Full Sail. The reason I know about Full Sail quite ironically is because of all these people who love it but complain that their degree still doesn't have them a job 15 or 20 years later.
Yeah.
But they keep going back for more. So what that says to me is that, and this is just an example that we're using with Full Sail, this is not to call out the place. People love it. People are enjoying the experience and having a good time learning with them.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the education.
It's not getting them a job.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with the experience that people are getting from Full Sail. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a photography degree. I really wanted to do that when I got out of high school. I just simply fell in love with something else at the time. And I told you the things that photography can do. Here's what a photography doesn't do. It cannot guarantee success.
Yeah.
And then I come back and I learn that there are people who do photography for a living, and they do it quite well, and they make a living at it. Not just a living, but they actually really succeed. And they've done it without a photography degree. They've done it through trial and error. Some people attend workshops and conferences. I know I've done that, for a while. You network with other photographers. And then here's the biggest thing that really helped me advance my photography. Do something else that needs photographs, but really is serving another purpose. And by that, I mean, being a photographer for the sake of serving clients, there's nothing wrong with that. But understanding how photography works and then doing something else and calling on that knowledge to support you, which is kind of what you're doing with your site and in your business, it really forces you to say, you've got to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you need to light whatever your meal prep stuff that you share with people or your product photography, you've got to figure out problems. And that forces you to be a better photographer.
It really does. I mean, I've had some hilarious situations where you've offered help and I've gone, nah, it's too much trouble. And then 45 minutes later, I'm kind of come in and go, well, I think I might have got one. You do learn from this, and you've got to have an extended sense of humor sometimes to get through a day. That goes with anything.
Here's the difference. What I'm talking about is, when I say do something else that needs photographs, if you're a photographer and you're walking around and say, I'd like to take some photographs, you take whatever makes you happy. But if you're laying out a blog or a magazine or something that's on a specific topic, then you need photographs that communicate part of the story.
Yes.
And that totally changes how you approach walking around to take those photos.
It really does. Also, even knowing how the crop format is going to work for that affects how you've got to think when you're taking the photos.
Well, you've got to think, what kind of post-processing am I going to do before I take this shot? What kind of crop am I going to do? Where does this need to show up? Is it going to have to be big enough to print off large? Is it going to fit on the blog post? What format does it need to be in? All those things you need to know before you even take the shot. For example, we've mentioned before, one of our other websites is called Orlando Local, and you went off to Epcot to cover, was it Flower and Garden or Food and Beverage? I think you've done both.
I've done both of them.
What you would shoot just walking around there as, on vacation is very different than what you had to shoot to show people, here's what you can experience.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, because I used to typically do square or landscape format scrapbooks, and all of a sudden I had to think, well, we've got I knew that for your website, you wanted the 16:9 crop. So I was trying to think, oh, hang on, I got to get more space above and or below for that crop so that I can use it as well in whatever else it might be. It definitely made me think on my feet more than what I would usually do. And I learned that sometimes it is necessary to recompose and take multiple shots of the same photo to crop differently and put out in different places.
Well, here's some of the silly things that you learn when you're doing a blog, doing photographs for a blog. You need to use this photograph for a header image. You need to use this for an Instagram image. You need to use this for a Pinterest image. And what's the difference? I've got 16:9 for the header image. I've got, 1:1 for the Instagram image. And then I've got, 3x4, 4x3, or maybe longer, you've got 735 pixels across and at least 1100, 1200 going down, or maybe more. The way that you photograph these things and the way that you display them are very different, even all for the same article.
Here's another thing that ties into that. I've got the crop thing kind of down more or less. I still mess it up from time to time. But I realized when I was taking some food photos over the last month or so, I want to put text into the thing to turn it into a graphic. So sometimes that means I need to rearrange the food. It's harder to do this with a subject that is a human being or something that's fixed in place, but it might mean you need to recompose. I'm thinking, I want to put text over here, and I'm not really sure yet what I'm going to say on here. Maybe you are, but you've got to try to figure out where you want the space. And that means you don't want competing colors and shapes and things in the background. So if you don't have a neutral background, are you going to gray it out with a box or crop it? And it teaches you to plan. Sometimes it means separating the food because I want to put a text bar through the middle. And it means, okay, I need to move and clear a space here and scoot these over a little bit. So it's really, there are little technical things that are maybe not so technical, but they come with a creative approach to things.
Well, and that's why I really wanted to throw this one in here on how to learn without a degree, because when you're going through photography school, they're going to give you assignments designed to get you to think about things. If you have a need for a photograph that's got to be a certain way, a certain shape, got to tell a certain story, it's kind of serving the same purpose. It's forcing you to think how you're going to use this photograph, what you need, how are you going to light it, what available light are you going to use. All those little issues, both creative and technical, have to fit in. And you can do the same thing without a degree. Depending on your personality, it may be better if someone tells you, or you've got someone there to show you how to do it rather than asking a friend how to do it.
Or working with people.
Oh, yeah, or figuring it out on your own. All those things are there, but you can make progress and learn as an individual without getting a degree and still be successful.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
We just wanted to bring that up. And, it was like some of the things we thought about was like, what if you want to learn to make money from photography without being a professional photographer? How do I use my photography to make money, but I don't want to serve clients? And that's kind of where I am. I don't want to serve clients.
You can be a professional photographer without serving clients.
Some of the ways I make my money are selling prints to corporate buyers.
I guess that's clients, but they're not really calling the shots. They like it, they don't. Yeah.
I've already done the photography. I've done it the way I wanted to do it. And if they like it, they'll buy it.
You're selling to clients, but you're not creating for clients.
Maybe, maybe not. We did have that one person who said, you know what, I would like some more abstract work, particularly from New York City.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I really wanted to do that, I could fly up to New York. I could walk around and look for things that were abstract, and she'd probably buy more. Really isn't the same as having a studio set up where people come in and get portraits. I would probably poke my eyes out if I ever had to be a glamour shots photographer. That's a way of making money, but it's not as creative. That's kind of a cookie cutter approach. There are so many options. And what I found is that I can kind of make my own purpose.
Yeah.
And use that. I'm not necessarily making money directly from photography for Orlando Local Blog. The opportunities are there.
Oh, I'm not making money doing mine for, social media for running.
Well, you just started though.
But I've just started. But I love it. And the photos get engagement. The photos get... I've actually networked through photos I've taken with people who have nothing to do with photography because of the photos, because it's maybe started a conversation. I'm just a plain, simple person. There's nothing complicated about my photography.
Well, you've also got an ambassadorship because of your online presence, and you've gotten a job with someone else that's probably because somewhat of your photography, because you've been showing daily what you're doing with the runs. So you are making money. It's not directly like I click this picture, I get paid for it, but you made money from your photography.
I guess,
and you've got potential for more because, one of these sponsorship photos, I remember you told me, it's like, their photo really stinks. I can do better on my own. And you did, and they liked it.
They did. And but I'm also not afraid to take a risk. They could have struck me off as an ambassador because they were doing a nationwide promotion actually for US and Canada. And they had their stock photo, and this is what we were supposed to put up for their promotion that they were doing. And I looked at the first thing I thought was, what a terrible photo. So I took the information part of the photo, the graphic part, and I took my own photo, which I thought was much nicer. And I made my own, and I put it up, and I still promoted the thing. And they actually did come and say, great photo.
Yeah, they loved it.
Those were the social media managers. I'm pretty sure that the big cheeses, if they'd seen that, would have struck me off. But I was willing to take that risk because I am who I am.
We just want to say that if you're looking at a photography degree, there's nothing wrong with going to do it. But make sure you understand you don't have to have it in order to succeed.
No.
And there is going to be a school debt to pay down from that degree. It's not for everybody, and there are other paths to do it. And maybe finding something that needs to be done and learning on your own can help get you where you want to be in order to be a successful photographer. Thank you very much for listening to the Photo Flunky Show. Show notes are going to be available at williambeem.com/episode 86. And of course, you get a transcript of the show there for free. We also have links to subscribe on iTunes, which is now known as Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Blueberry, Stitcher, and a couple others. So hope you enjoy that. We've really enjoyed bringing this show to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.